Do you struggle with short haircuts, scissor over comb, stuff like that? Well, I don't know if you're like me, but I know that I did. So you make sure you watch the end of this video because I'm gonna share the top things that I learned, the simple techniques that made it a million times easier. What's going on, everyone? Hey, welcome back. And if this is your first time with me, thanks for hanging out. My name is Justin Hickox. I've been doing hair for 25 years, and on this channel, I share techniques and tricks, things that I have learned that have made my life a whole lot easier in an effort to hopefully make your life a whole lot more simple. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure that you subscribe below and make sure that you ring that bell so that you get notified every Wednesday when I bring out brand new videos. Otherwise, let's jump into talking about short hair and scissor over comb. Okay, so my first tip deals with just holding the shears, right? Holding implements in general. So I see a lot of people do this where they'll really kind of put the forefinger, the tip of the forefinger on top of the blade and really try to control that blade with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that way of holding shears. I prefer, especially when I'm doing scissor over comb, to hold that blade a little back towards my knuckle so that I can get a little better control over that bottom blade, hold that a little bit stiller, and be able to really just move the top blade so that I'm not chomping through the hair quite as much. It's important that you hold your shears in a way that gives you the absolute most stability that you can get, really the most control. Ideally, you're only gonna be moving your thumb, which is only gonna be moving the top blade. When you're doing something like shear over comb, it's important that the bottom blade doesn't move more than it absolutely has to. You really wanna try to keep that pretty rigid. Now, when you're holding your comb, I like to hold my comb like this so that I can comb up, down, I can cut scissor over comb, and then I can immediately comb the hair back down so I can see my line very efficiently without extra movements. This cuts my time down, and overall, it's easier and more fluid. Okay, so the next tip is all about removing length and removing bulk. It's kind of the technique, if you will, of shear over comb. The main thing that you want to remember is that your shears should be opening and closing faster than you're moving your comb. The reason for this is that it creates a cleaner line and a smoother blend. You want to make sure that you don't stop moving the comb and then cut. See, a lot of people do this, and it's really hard to blend out the lines that this will create. Now, whenever you're dealing with a weight line, it's important that you pay attention to starting below the weight line and then continuing to move your shears up beyond the weight line. I see a lot of people that stop at the weight line, cut into the weight line a couple of times, and then move forward again. The problem with that is you're not blending all of the hair, and sometimes that weight is created by hair above what seems to be the line, and therefore it leaves some bulk or a line in the head. Now, one other trick too, especially on short haircuts where it's really tight in the nape, many times there's the indent right below the occipital bone that can have a tendency to make hair look a little bit longer there and leave kind of a dark line. If you have the client stick their head forward, push that neck out, and go diagonally back and forth across that area, you're going to get a better and smoother blend if you're utilizing shear over comb. Okay, so tip number 3 is all about how I actually cut the top of short haircuts. I personally like to point cut the top. I tend to find that more often than not, people don't want straight lines. They don't want blunt cuts in the top. They don't want to see any lines. They don't want to see any bulk. They like things to blend. So I find that point cutting into it helps me alleviate any concern up front of creating too much of a line. Then I actually like to go through at the end after it's dried and texturize those out with texturizing shears. Just texturize the ends, not overly, but a little bit, just to help break up that line a little bit more so it blends a little bit nicer. Now, one tip that you can also use is many times when you're cutting hair short, there'll be like one area that has a tendency to kind of get poofy. You can take thinning shears and texturize just the very tips of that hair, and many times that will help that hair to lay down a little bit flatter for the client. The last tip I have is a finalizing tip. There's a few places that tend to grow out faster on short hair that your client's going to notice a lot quicker. The two major places are in the temples and around the hairline. So I always like to go at the very end and just take the hair around the temples a bit shorter just to give that a little bit of extra time to grow. Another thing I like to do is to taper the neckline in to the skin, trying not to cut a bold line across the neckline. It has a tendency to fill in nicer, to grow out nicer, and overall just to look a bit cleaner. All right guys, so those are my top techniques that I can share with you about how to deal with short hair and shear over comb. Now, those are gonna take some time to kind of practice and get used to, but I can promise you, if you put those techniques into action and you practice them over and over and over and over, you're gonna feel so much more comfortable and confident when it comes to shear over comb, and then ultimately that's gonna build so much more confidence in other areas of doing short hair. So if this video helped you at all, I would love to hear about it. Comment below, tell me what you learned. If you feel like this might help somebody else, make sure you share it with them. If you want to make sure that you get notified every time or every Wednesday when I bring out a new video, make sure you subscribe below and hit that bell so that you get notified. Otherwise, I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me today. You have a great night. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.